ducks, the amphibious vehicles manned by African-American Army operators. They bring 105mm howitzers ashore.
I came off there with my amphibious duck loaded with a 105 Hauser and 7 Marines. On the radio, but don't come in on Red Beach, it was too hot, come in on Green. The water was real rough because, you know, you gotta have training to know how to drive that duck on when the water is rough and your ramp is coming up and down. Well, I tell you, I was scared going in, I was scared coming back. All that fall over top and you don't know what's gonna hit you.
On shore, Black Marines face a nightmare of enemy fire with the invasion force.
I hit Iwo Jima with the 34th Marine Depot Company about D+3. This was the night of D+3. And they put me and a few other Black Marines up to hold that line.
Well, it was kind of scary. Of course, I wasn't afraid because perhaps I didn't have sense enough to be afraid. I always felt that anything horrible happening would happen to somebody else, not me.
As it grew on and got darker, I realized that I was up on that line by myself. There being no light so you can see, all around me I could hear Japanese talking.
You knew that the enemy was out there, and you wondered whether or not you'd be able to get into the beach safely, or whether or not perhaps you'd have problems getting in.
The intensity of the fire on such a small area that one could have been killed at any one time, at any one place.
Black sailors will also set a standard for valor in the Pacific. Aboard the battleship West Virginia at Pearl Harbor, Navy messman Dory Miller mans an anti-aircraft gun and engages attacking Japanese planes. Miller will go down with his ship, the Liscum Bay, later in the war. Another messman, Alonzo Swan, shoots down kamikaze planes diving toward his ship, the USS Intrepid. In all, 4 black sailors are awarded the Navy's second highest honor, the Navy Cross. Swan will wait 50 years to receive his medal. The legacy of Swan and Miller is continued during the invasion of Okinawa, as black naval gunners helped destroy the horde of attacking kamikaze planes intent on destroying the fleet.
The Japanese sent suicide planes to land on Okinawa. We saw Japanese planes trying to dive into the ships, but the Navy gunners blew them up in midair.
Most pride, I think, is having put your life on your line for your country. The feeling then was that you would have lost your life for a good reason, a good purpose.
I'm proud to have been a Marine, and you'll find most black Marines think the same way that I do.
If this country ever went to war, I wanted to be a definite part of that war.
Word came out that they wanted volunteers, colored troops they call us in, to volunteer to fight in white units as an integrated unit. I was told it would be integrated.
We got ridiculed quite a bit by a lot of combat troops that came over. We went overseas earlier in the war to help build the airports and so forth for the 8th and 9th Air Forces. And after they got there, we were constantly ridiculed as, you know, as they ridiculed blacks at that time.
I liked the action. That outfit didn't have enough action for me. I was in the Army and I wanted to see some action.
By December 1944, the Army faces a dangerous shortage. Few white combat replacement troops are left in the European theater. When the Germans launch a counteroffensive in the Ardennes, the need for reinforcements becomes crucial. There is only one place to turn: the all-black support units behind the lines. For the first time in the war, the Army asks African-American soldiers to take their places in combat units with white soldiers. The response exceeds all expectations.
The sergeant came up and said, anybody want to sign up for the infantry? I didn't hear no more about it till the next day. I went to town. When I came back, the medical officer was there examining people, for the infantry. And all those were passed. I think the next day they was gone.
Almost 5,000 black soldiers volunteer. They know they are trading the safety of duty in the rear to risk their lives on the front lines.
When we volunteered to go into combat, we automatically had to give up any rank that we had. We had to go in as privates.
Oh, I was generous. I give them my stripes. I went from buck sergeant to buck private for a chance to get shot at.
I was just boiling for a fight. I'll be frank with you. I was boiling and stewing for a fight anyhow. It didn't make any difference to me who I fought.
To limit the effects of personnel losses in service units, only 2,500 black soldiers are taken. In January, they begin infantry training.
They sent troops who had been wounded and couldn't go back to their unit, infantry-type sergeants, to train us. We received the best training anyone could receive to prepare to go into combat.
6 weeks later, 53 platoons of black infantrymen, led by white lieutenants and platoon sergeants, joined white infantry and armored units at the front.
They told us we were integrated. It turned out we were not totally integrated. We became an extra platoon.
We got up there, the white soldiers were glad to see us from the beginning. I think they were glad to see anybody come up there because they was catching hell. We got right in there in the thick of things, and they taught us a whole lot right quick.
Our first initial firefight was interesting. The colonel came up, and we had to take this little town. And the colonel said, well, we might as well try them.
All of a sudden, everything break loose, so everybody started scattering out. So we ran to this building, and the Germans, they was tearing us up. And Lieutenant Wyland said, you're gonna fall back and put some smoke so we can withdraw. And so I told the Lieutenant, I said, we done came this far, what are we gonna go back now for?
And we took the town. After that, they was trying us constantly because they knew we could do the job.
I was pretty scared. I really tried to hold myself macho together, but I was really sorry that I volunteered. I really didn't feel good about it at all, volunteering for this hideous duty.
If you've never really been under artillery fire and air bombardment, you don't understand it. We were under heavy artillery fire, and I was so frightened that I grabbed my steel helmet and pulled it down to my feet. Now, this sounds stupid. I know you can't do that, but that is what fear will do to you.
The Army calls the platoons an experiment in integration.
The relationship between the blacks and the white soldiers was very good. It was excellent. They are more like family. Anytime anybody knows you're in combat, you're a family man.
When the war in Europe is over, the theater commander tells the black infantrymen that integration is over. Some return home. Others go back to segregated units.
All of a sudden, one morning, they came up with a truck and picked us up with black soldiers up and carried us on back down into France and assigned us to a black outfit. And I felt rather badly. And I said, you mean to tell me this is what's happening to us after the war is over? They're getting rid of us?
The experiment shatters the belief that integrating combat units will cause social dissension.
We proved to the world that we could fight. It had already been proven by the 9th and 10th Cavalry. We proved as an American we could fight. In fact, we overdid the job because in World War II, the black newspapers were saying, let our boys fight. In Vietnam, they said, let our boys stop fighting because they recognized the fact that combat kills people. And we were ready for combat, and we were warriors, true sense of the word.
Anytime they had a tough position to be cracked, they would send for the 761st.
We continued and completed 183 days straight of combat duty, and the only reason why we didn't do more is because the Germans quit.
The 761st Tank Battalion is activated on April 1st, 1942.
I went to Camp Claiborne, Louisiana. And I'm not bragging about that place because it is about the worst that they had in the United States. But that was where the 761st was located.
You learned every job. There was to learn to be a driver, a bow gunner, a loader, and a gunner, and a tank commander.
They were going to make that unit look good. No matter what happened, they were going to show people that blacks could fight tanks and fight against the Germans as well as the whites could. And in the long run, they did a beautiful job of that.
October 10th, 1944. The 761st lands at Omaha Beach. They are the Army's first African-American tank battalion committed to combat. They have been sent to help fight the Germans' elite tank corps.
The General Patton had made a statement that they didn't have to worry about Negroes fooling with tanks because it was too technical piece of equipment. And yet, when he requested from the Department of Army to send him the best remaining separate tank battalion left in the United States, who should show up but the 761st?
And we went to a little plant not too far from Nancy, and that's where we all assembled. And then we got visited by General Patton. And he told us that, you know who he was? And he says, I have nothing but the best, and I sent for you. And he says, don't let me down, and don't let your people down.
We were pinned down, buttoned down in these tanks. The first battle on Chateaubourg and Chateau Saline. And we had a hell of a battle there. And we took those cities. We took those 3 cities the first day. And we unbuttoned, came out, and they almost fell off their feet to see that we were black.
Through November, the 761st battles its way through Jussey, Mauvais-le-Vic, and Goublin.